Hey everyone, welcome into WSD Bombers Report. My name is Connor Hrabchak. In a moment, I'm going to be joined by Zach Schnitzer from Bonfire Winnipeg. You watch him and Darren Bombing for the best Blue Bombers postgame show right here on YouTube on Bonfire Winnipeg. And for the first time in this show's history, we're talking about a Blue Bombers win, Schnitzy. How are you feeling after the Bombers take down the Argos 40-31 on Friday night?
Buddy, I like I said
Finally.
last time, we were gonna have to cancel the show because the Bombers lost
The show
3 games.
continues. The show
The show
continues.
continues. Thank you, Willie Jefferson and Trey Vaval. Honestly, I'm thrilled they won, but I'm still exhausted. That was an exhausting game. You can't do that to a 42-year-old dad. Like the Bombers tried to put it away, they couldn't. They tried to put it away, they couldn't. Like it took till the final minute for the Bombers to pull that one out, Connor. And yeah, I'm still recovering, but I'm thrilled they won.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to start with the good because, like I said, it's our first win that we're talking about. So let's start with the good. The Bombers moved to 4-3, very much keeping them in the race in the Western, division. With
Mhm.
Saskatchewan is now 7-1, so they're starting to pull away. But you've got the home and home coming up, and then Calgary's 5-3. They just lost to Ottawa with Vernon Adams not playing in that game. We'll see if he plays. We'll preview the next Bomber game coming up against Calgary later on in the show. But the good from this game, Schnitzy, I think I got to start with Trey Vaval. I mean,
Yeah.
kick return touchdown, punt return touchdown, filling in at corner when Jamal Parker went down with injury and playing well in that time. He was an absolute force, and you and I talked about him quite a bit on this show. He was fumbling. His yards per return were going down. We were kind of losing confidence, and we were beginning to, talk about Peyton Logan, or Cody Case was returning kicks at the end of the last Toronto game before he got injured. We were kind of, headed towards a direction where maybe we'd be talking about Trey Vaval getting replaced as the kick returner, punt returner. And man, did he put that to bed. What a performance. 2 kick return touchdowns. That really changed the game, put the Bombers up by a ton in the first half. And as we saw with the rest of the game, I mean, every point mattered down the stretch there. But just your thoughts on Trey Vaval kind of breaking out in this one. Not kinda. He definitely broke out in this one with 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I honestly felt sheepish for questioning Vavel
Yeah, me too. I was like,
because
whoa, this is a good
wow.
performance.
And it wasn't like this came out of nowhere for the team. The team loved him out of training camp. They had talked about expecting him to break one. I think it was Dembski who said this guy's going to break one, right? And he was full value, my friend. Like what a response from Trey Vavel after putting a couple on the turf and losing a couple fumbles, right? He comes back and he's only the 5th player in CFL history to have both a punt return touchdown and a kick return touchdown. Absolutely electric at absolutely key times of the game, right? Like
Mhm.
he punctuated what I thought was one of the best qualities of the Bombers in this win, which was their response to adversity. And you have that what you're coming into the game with Bomber quarterbacks throwing 3 pick sixes in the past few games. Streveler throws another pick six, albeit not really his fault. It was a tip drill, right? But the air, you were there too, right? Like the
Yeah.
air went out of the
Oof.
stadium. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, here we go again. Cam Judge with a pick six.
Mhm.
Lanier tips it in the air. And then the 93-yard
The
kick return
response,
touchdown.
so awesome.
And here's the thing about Vavel, a couple things. Listening to the postgame show, this guy has character. You can see why O'Shea would love a guy like this. He
Mhm.
was humble. He was asked, what do you make of the 60 minutes of this game? And you're thinking he's going to talk about his kick and punt, like recording CFL history here. First Bomber to ever have a kick and punt return touchdown. He's like, oh yeah, I'm so glad. This was about the game. That we won the game and my
Mhm.
blockers and then just he admitted he'd been struggling with the pressure,
Mhm.
right? The anxiety of trying to perform. And then he said he put a strip on his nose that said 2004 because that's when he started playing football, Connor, because he just wanted to focus on enjoying the game and trusting his teammates and playing loose.
Mhm.
And whatever that seemed like the magic elixir because that guy has speed. Like
Yeah.
he reminded me, think back to 2019 when Janarian and Grant popped on the scene with those 2 punt return touchdowns against Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
And there he was playing against Janarian and Grant. He's got speed. Like, he runs a 4.5, 140, I believe. Like, he's fast, he's quick in small areas, and just that breakaway speed and just hitting. Here's the last thing. What you want in a returner is fearless, like just reckless abandon, hitting the hole and looking for contact. And I think he has all the qualities you want in a good returner. And I don't think this is a flash in the pan. I think that he can continue to do this, not maybe to a game, but I just thought he was exceptional, and it's so exciting. The fans needed that so badly, and so did the team.
Yeah, and I will say too, like, it doesn't have to be touchdowns going forward for Trey Vaval, and we've
Yeah.
known this. It can be flipping field position. It can be a 40-yard return when you catch it right before the goal line and you take it out to midfield. Like, it doesn't have to be these miraculous plays. It just so happened that in this game, he had 2 miraculous return touchdowns that really changed the outcome of the game. And he's absolutely, you know, earned himself more time as the kick returner, if not established himself as the kick returner with a performance like this. Like you said, first Bomber to have both a kick return and punt return in the same game. That's pretty incredible. And I don't think there's anyone else on the roster that can do that right now. So he definitely has the highest ceiling as a kick returner, and he proved that in this game. Another player that made a massive difference, and we were waiting for it. It finally arrived. We talked about it last week. Maybe a slower start to the season. Willie Jefferson had 4 pass knockdowns, vintage Willie. He had a forced fumble that got returned for a touchdown, which also flipped the game. I mean, when you look at this game, the offense scored 1 touchdown. Vaval had 2. The defense, like, they really, really stepped up in this game. And Willie Jefferson led the charge with 4 pass knockdowns and that forced fumble that took it to the house. I know Willie Jefferson had a little bit of an impromptu visit on the Bonfire postgame show. He popped by for a little bit. So talk about Willie's performance and then him being on the Bonfire postgame show. Schnitzy.
You know, we were talking, and I feel like you were on this. You saw this coming a little bit because you talked about Willie last game, and in our WST Bombers report, how, you know, he can take over a game, and that's exactly what he did at Princess Auto Stadium on Friday night when the team absolutely needed him. He stepped up because, as you said, that offense only had 1 touchdown drive. You could argue they did enough to win, but I would say maybe they did enough not to lose, and they needed that defense. This much maligned defense that is getting shredded, that secondary, giving up big plays. And I think one of the reasons they didn't was because of the D-line pressure. And Willie, with 4 knockdowns, I think the record in the CFL is 5 knockdowns in a game. So he's right up there. He's now, I believe, over 80 knockdowns. He's going for the 100 club with 100 sacks and 100 knockdowns. Just incredible. Like a 6'7" player with that wingspan. And yes, he made an appearance on the Bonfire After Dark postgame show. He as you saw, he was in on the chat, and then I was like, I think that, like, because, you know, sometimes on YouTube you can have someone like WST. It happens all the time where you have ELD coming on the show.
Yeah, like people just make it their name. Yeah. So that's what I assumed at first. I was like, oh, someone made their name Willie Jefferson because he had a great game. No, it was actually
no. And I was like, wait, it says Willie Jefferson the third. Like, that actually looks official. And then he starts chatting, and it's like, no, I think this is actually Willie Jefferson. So Darren DM'd him, got him on the show, and we talked about the knockdown and how that works, because it looks simple. Like, okay, you just like put up your hand when the quarterback's going to throw, but he talked about the science of it, and that, you know, you want to get a sack. That's your number one. You want to cause pressure and get the sack. But if you know that you're not going to get to the quarterback, then your mind has to switch to, okay, can I disrupt this play in other ways? Am I going to drop back into coverage, or am I going to try and knock this down? And then you're looking, as the play's developing, you're assuming, he's saying, the quarterback's going to throw it maybe short to an intermediate. So I'm looking around, looking at his eyes, and then you have to time it perfectly. Get off your block from the offensive line and put up your hand just at the time that the the quarterback's going to throw it because, he can pump and you can jump, and then he can throw it on your way down. But it's just there's a sweet science to it, and he broke it down. It was just awesome. And as they say, Connor, right? Like big time players make big time plays and big time moments. He had 2 critical knockdowns when the offense kept giving the ball back and throwing up all over themselves. Willie Jefferson bailed them out with 2 key knockdowns in the last few minutes of the fourth quarter. And if I am Jason Hogan and Chris Streveler, I am buying him a steak dinner every night this week to make sure I thank that guy and keep him happy and fed until next Saturday in Calgary.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into that absolutely coming up here in just a moment. Let me run through quickly some of the numbers from this game. The Bombers winning 40-31. The net yardage, 265 to 321 in the Argonauts' favor. First downs were in the Bombers' favor, so they didn't have the net yardage, but they were moving the ball at times, and then the turnovers maybe came in inopportune spots after they were moving the ball down the field. Big plays were 2-2. That is a 30-yard pass, 30 yards or more pass, or a 20 yards or more rush. The Bombers keeping the Argonauts to 2 is a massive improvement over what we've seen or what we saw in the 3-game losing streak. They were giving up basically 4 or more in every single game, so holding them down to 2. And again, those 2 big plays, like that doesn't account for Trey Vaval's 2 kick return touchdowns. Like a big play strictly means offensively 30-plus passing play or a 20-plus yard rushing play. And then the turnovers, still 3 for the Bombers, and we're going to get into that later on in our Blue Crew review. We got a few questions about the continuing of the turnover trend, but the Bombers defense forcing 3 turnovers as well. So it was a wash. And hey, when the Bombers don't get destroyed in the turnover battle, would you look at that? They win a game, and it's not that simple, but like it is at the same time. It's the turnovers are something we'll talk about that, and you know what? We'll talk about it right now because the next thing I want to bring up. That's enough talk about the good, Schnitzy. It's time to get into the bad from this game.
Hey, well, can I just say they kept Toronto to 33% on second down.
That's another big improvement.
Which is that's a huge, because we were talking about that a lot, Connor? Like in the last few games that the second down conversion percentage for the Stamps and the Argos was around 61%. You're just not going to win football games that way. And I thought the Bomber defense, there was a couple of busts, but listen, Damonte Coxie is Damonte Coxie. Like this guy is maybe the second best receiver in the CFL right now behind Kenny Lawler, and he's gonna burn you. Like it just looks like that's what he's gonna do. But Bonds had a couple of great plays where he was with him step for step. Even caused an offensive pass interference because he was running Coxie's route for him. I thought that Bomber defense really stepped up. And just the other quick thing I want to say is I love what you were talking about last show about yards per attempt for opposing quarterbacks, and it being like basically a first down every throw, like 10, 11 yards per attempt. Well, this one, Arbuckles was decent, but it was 8.4, which is down, right? And I think that was reflective of the defense being able to calm the waters in this game.
Yeah, the second downs combined with Willie's knockdowns, combined with, some pressure on the quarterback, some sacks, forced fumble, a touchdown. I think, you look at the final score, 40-31, it looks like a shootout. But I think if you watch this game and really dive into it, it was a step forward from the defense. And look, at home against Nick Arbuckle, coming off a loss against Arbuckle, it almost like needed to be a good game for the defense. And like you said, it was Willie Jefferson, a big time player making big time plays for that defense. And the stats reflect it too. You brought up the yards per attempt, much lower, 8.4. It wasn't an average of first down every time they dropped back to pass, which is a win. 14 first downs only for Toronto, where they had 2 big passing plays, including the deep touchdown. But a step forward for the defense, I think, is a good way to describe it. Now, for the offense, I think we saw a lot of the same issues that we've seen throughout the course of the season. Obviously, Streveler had the pick 6, which, like you said, this one wasn't as blatant as, the screen pass against Calgary. Guy takes it back. Wow, that is, a very obvious pick six. This one was tipped, landed in the hands of Cam Judge. He took it to the house. So it wasn't quite, you can't pin that entirely on the quarterback. The biggest issue, I think, we, Schnitzy and I, and Bomber fans around have is with the play calling in certain moments. And I think Jason Hogan really showed, his rookie offensive coordinator status in this game. And I'm going to bring up a still screenshot that, maybe a trigger warning for some Bomber fans, but this right here, my jaw was on the floor looking at this one. So a few weeks ago against Calgary at home at Princess Auto Stadium, the Bombers had the play where they marched it all the way down to the 7 on a great drive, 1st and 10 from the 7, and then they roll out Chris Streveler and he throws across his body. It's a bad decision, bad play call. They should have ran the ball, bad throw, turnover, and the game really flips from there because Calgary goes all the way down. This could have had a similar effect where if it wasn't for Kyrie Wilson and Willie Jefferson knocking down passes the very next play and Dietrich Nichols making a nice play on defense, this could have flipped the game. This could have entirely changed the game where it's 1st and 10. The Bombers are marching. They've had the ball for a few minutes already. How many times do we see this from the Blue and Gold over this dynasty run where they just run and kill the clock and it keeps going and the clock keeps ticking and they eventually win the game? 1st and 10, they play action to Brady and they take a deep shot. And this ends up being intercepted. Chris Streveler takes a deep shot to Jared Stearns, who, was giving up a lot of height on the play, let's just say. And
very generous.
He's giving up a lot of height on the play. And look, I'm going to keep this still screenshot up here. It's 1st and 10 from the 14 with 2:56 left in the fourth. This is out of the 3-minute warning. This has to be a run to kill the clock. And the worst part about it all is a field goal is what the Bombers ended up kicking later on, a few drives later, but a field goal makes this a 2-score game. So even if you ran the ball here twice, got stuffed, and the clock just ran for both, and you kick a field goal, it's a 2-score game. And you're kicking the ball back to Toronto, and they have to score twice. They have to score, stop you, and score again. But to throw here, let alone a deep shot to Jared Stearns, who, with all due respect, not a jump ball receiver, right? Like he's not Kenny Lawler, he's not 6'5". It's a very poor decision. I'm still fascinated to see what Jason Hogan can do with this offense going forward because I feel like every week there's some positive improvement and some negative improvement, but the play calling in certain moments, I mentioned the Calgary one, 1st and 10 from the 7, and now this one, 1st and 10 from the 14. It just loses me at times, Schnitzy. That's where I'm going to leave that. Your thoughts?
I have to make a bizarre analogy, but trust me that it will relate to this exact still shot, which is triggering. I'm glad you had a trigger warning.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this and I'm just like, because this still shot is exactly where I'm like, because you see Streveler loading up the throw on 1st down, inside 3 minutes, up 6. Okay.
Field goal makes it 9.
And I'm just like, oh no. Like I just looked at it, I'm like, no, this can't be happening. Like they can't be throwing the ball, regardless of even whether it was Stearns or not. Like, what are you doing throwing the ball? But like, it's like this, like when you're a parent, you're like, you make your kids brush their teeth before bed, even if they're really tired and they're throwing a tantrum. It's like, no, you brush your teeth, right? That's a rule. You got to follow the rules. The other day we were coming back from Ottawa on a late flight, which was delayed. We get in at 1 a.m. My son is like falling asleep as I'm carrying him upstairs. I'm not going to make him brush his teeth because it's 1 a.m, right? There's rules, right? And one of the rules that Mike O'Shea talked about post game about offense is that when the opposing team stacks the box, which the Argos did a lot in this game, which was 3 linemen, 4 linebackers. You're not going to run at us right up the middle. Fair enough. And Streveler and O'Shea says you have to test the DBs because it's going to be one-on-one coverage, right? You have to make them pay sometimes. And while that rule is true, context matters. It doesn't matter if they're stacking the box with 2:56 to go. You run the freaking ball, right? I'm not going to make my son brush my teeth at 1 a.m. I'm not going to run the ball I'm not going to throw the ball on 1st down. Okay. Context. 2:56 left. Like you said, up 6 points, possibility to go up by 2 scores. It was boneheaded. If you are going to throw the ball, like on the one hand, it's often good to throw the ball on first down when the other team's expecting the rush, because they're not gonna, the DBs are maybe gonna play closer to the line of scrimmage. You might get man on man. That's all good stuff. If you are gonna throw that, throw a fade, for God's sakes. Throw a go ball so that if you don't get it, it just goes out of bounds. But to throw on the slant and go on a double move against Tavares McFadden, who's 6'2", and Jarrett Stearns, who's 5'8", and is not a jump ball receiver. What are you doing? Like, that play alone, Connor, is almost a fireable offense. Had the Bombers lost that game, which they very well could have, that would have been and of course he's not going to get fired, right? But it was unconscionable. And you and I talked about this before we started the show. On the next drive, they are 2nd and 4 with trying to eat the clock, and they're still only up by 6. And Streveler gets sacked because he's hanging in the pocket trying to throw the ball. Like, if you didn't learn the first time, Hogan, why is Streveler throwing the ball on 2nd and 4? One of the best.
2nd and 4, you read option with Brady and Streveler.
Sure.
I would bet they pick up 4. Or
3, and then they kill more clock with Wilson coming in on third down, they were really good on third down this game, right? Like, they were 4 for 4 on third down. Terry Wilson is a good you can talk about whether he's a good backup or even like a third string quarterback, but short yardage, he's money. And to throw the ball in that situation as well was mind-boggling.
It was. And look, I think I'm a little bit more of, I said it earlier, but when I was teeing it up, I think this is just Jason Hogan working through as a rookie offensive coordinator, the context that you brought up, Schnitzy. It's like, okay, yes, they are loading the box, and Jason Hogan might just be dialed into, they're loading the box, so we're taking deep shots, and we're going to stick to that no matter the context. But I agree. I'm with you 100% that you gotta, if it's 1 a.m., not brushing my teeth, right? I'm running the ball 1st and 10 on the 14 with a chance to make it 2 scores, even if you get stuffed twice, with Sergio Castillo making a chip shot field goal. Like, that's about as guaranteed as anything. That should have been a run. I think the 2nd and 4, I have a less of an issue with, just because the first one was in the red zone, up 6 to go up 9 with the field goal. So that is a play that the Bombers are very glad it didn't burn them. And it's something that going forward, we're going to be watching for. We're going to be watching for that every week. We've been watching for it already. We mentioned it after the first Calgary loss, that play from the 7, needs to be a run, needs to keep it simple. Streveler's in the game. Don't make him throw cross body off of his, front foot to the sideline, which gets picked, and the game turns right there. This is the same thing. So going forward, it's going to be really interesting to see if Jason Hogan can adjust in these situations specifically, and maybe ease the heart rates of Bomber fans at Princess Auto Stadium going forward. Schnitzy, let's get to our buy or sell segment. This is the segment where, and if you're here with us on YouTube, thank you so much for checking out the show. If this is your first time checking out the show, make sure you tell someone about WST Bomber Report. But this is our next segment. Let me get the graphic up here. Buy or sell. This is the part of the show where I pepper Schnitzy with statements, questions, whatever it might be about the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and he lets me know whether he's buying or selling what I'm telling him. And if you're here with us on YouTube, thanks for checking it out. Play along with us in the comments down below. Let me know if you're buying or selling what I'm telling Schnitzy as well. The first thing I'm going to mention, Zach, is the Bombers are back to their winning ways, or did they deserve to lose? Are you buying or selling? Which side are you on there, that they're back, or they deserve to lose this game and kind of got a little lucky?
I am so on the fence with this one, man. And I think that's why I'm so tired, because my brain is like, there's 2 sides of my brain, that angel and devil, that are duking it out. And 1 minute I'm like, okay, you know what? That was classic complimentary football with the defense pitching in with a touchdown, the special teams with 2 touchdowns, the offense coughing, throwing up on themselves, but they did just enough to win, some decent responses. They all worked together to get a tough win against a surging Toronto team. Great. But then the other part of me is like, Toronto had 97 yards of penalties. Ryan Dinwiddie kicked a 9-yard field goal on 3rd and 2. Ryan Dinwiddie punted early in the game on 3rd and 1. 3 interceptions. Cooley bobbled the opening kickoff. Then he fumbles it, gives Toronto another chance. I don't know if I'm buying or selling. Right now, what I'm buying on is that there was some glimmers, some reason for optimism, but the offense still needs to get its act together, Connor, in order for this to be the start of maybe a trend in the right direction, because you can't expect to win this way every week. Maybe once a week, maybe once a year, right? You're not going to get a defensive touchdown now. They've got 2 in a row, the Bombers, against Toronto, but that's just not going to happen most games. You're not going to get a kick or punt return touchdown very often, not to mention 2. Which is, in this case, as we talked about, this was historic, right? You're not going to make history every week. So if this team's going to continue to win, the offense is going to have to put more than 1 touchdown drive together. And I liked, there was the 1 touchdown drive that the offense had, which was capped off by a 9-yard Streveler run into the end zone, was great play calling by Jason Hogan. They had him going out on the bootleg Streveler and throwing on the run, which worked a couple times in this game. They had a Dembski sweep for like 20 yards. They had some play action. They had some read option. It was creative play calling, and which then opened up Brady Oliveira to run it. He had an 8-yard gain on that drive. So there's ways to open up the playbook and get Streveler moving out of the pocket. And I would like to see more of that. And I think you're going to have to see more of that if this team is going to stack up wins.
I will say on the are the Bombers back, or did they just get lucky? Another thing, you're throwing out some stats there. This one's honestly weird to me. Toronto had 8 rushing yards. They ran the ball 5 times for a 1.6 yards per carry average. That's just a weird one. Like, I don't know if the Bombers were loading the box, doing what Toronto was doing to Winnipeg, or if Toronto just really abandoned the run very early and their plan was to attack this Bombers secondary, which if they were coming into that, fair enough. I mean, they just did it last week and had a lot of success throwing the football. But that one was a wacky one. So I think the truth is very much so in the middle of, are the Bombers back or did they get lucky? I think, like you said, there's glimmers of hope there. If I had to choose one, I'm going more towards the Bombers are back, because they didn't have their starting QB. They didn't have Stanley Bryant. They didn't have Dalton Schoen. All 3 players who, as far as we know, should be returning at some point this season. And I think the offense is going to look a lot different going forward. And that was, that dominated the bad portion of our breakdown of the game. And then the defense really taking some strides forward with all of the changes on the back end, which maybe we'll touch on a little bit later on as well.
Absolutely.
I think is big. Let's get back to buy or sell. Yes, let's get back to buy or sell. Let me because we said, are the Bombers back or did they just get lucky? And I mentioned the defense there. Let me hit this one. The Bombers defense is back. Buying or selling? Are you buying or selling that? Bombers defense.
I'm buying it because I thought the defense made strides here, Connor. 33% opposing second down conversion percentage, 8.4 yards per throw. They made the Argos one-dimensional. The Argos ran for 8 yards, right? That's winning football. Now, some of that is because the Argos were down by 21 points, 31-10, right before halftime. They ended up getting a field goal, so a team is going to abandon a run. But Toronto, at the best of times, is not a running football team. But I thought the defense did some really good things, and then they were burnt for 230+ yard passes, both by Coxie. One was on Bonds. He got by Bonds for a big gainer, and then he got that 56-yard touchdown. But that wasn't on Bonds. That was on the backup Vaval, who was playing the field side corner at DB. So, like, this is a guy who hasn't taken reps all week. He's a backup there. You know, I think Vaval's could be a decent DB, but you know, he's playing against one of the best receivers in the CFL who just is torching everybody.
Right.
So I thought I would buy the defense, and you know, they score another defensive touchdown. So this isn't just a flash in the pan. They've now had 2 plus 1 in preseason, if you care about that kind of thing. And you had you know, we talked about response. Every time the offense struggled or turned the ball over, it seemed like the defense picked them up, Connor. Right? Like they were going to be KO'd, and they just picked up that boxer off the mat. Like, one example is the Cooley fumbles the ball on special teams, and the Argos have it on like the 40-yard line of the Bombers, and Tony Jones comes up with an amazing interception there off Nick Arbuckle on like a flat road. He just reads the mail and takes it away. And we talked about all those knockdowns. The last thing I'll say is I was impressed with the defense also, Connor, because they had just made adjustments in the secondary. They benched Marquise Bridges to the practice roster. They put Jamal Parker there. Then they they put in Griffin to start at Sam linebacker, and then Greta Cramdy plays at safety, a position he hadn't played before, although he did play Sam in university. And there's a lot of, if you look at what John Hodge was saying, there's a lot of similarity between Sam and safety in the Canadian game. But there was they shuffled the deck there, Connor, and they still, I thought, held their own against a pretty good passing attack. And I think it's only going to get better because there's 3 new guys there. And then when Jamal Parker goes down, you saw Vaval come in for Parker and get roasted that one play, but then they locked it down. So I think there's a lot of reasons to like what this defense did. And you got Vaughters continuing to get pressure, Jay Person. I like what this defense can do, and I expect them to continue to progress.
Okay, I like that. I like that answer. And I will just say, yeah, all the changes on the back end, you outlined them well there. Retta Cramdy to safety, Jamal Parker to corner, Michael Griffin to Sam linebacker there. I did really like those changes. Jamal Parker went down with an injury and did not return. Trey Vaval was the corner, like you said, later in the game there, Schnitzy. So we'll monitor that, along with the other, slew of injuries that the Bombers are going through on the offensive side of the ball, the defense as well, with Jamal Parker, him being questionable, and we'll see with practice this week if he plays. Now, Schnitzy, it's time for our next segment, the Blue Crew Review. Now, this is the segment where I'm putting out a tweet basically after every single game. Schnitzy's reposting it on his Twitter, calling for questions from you, the fans, and we feature as many as we can here on the show and answer as many as we can. And we've gotten great response over the past number of weeks. So thank you to everyone who's submitting questions. This one's from my guy, Elliot, who submitted a few questions last week as well. And he's back with more great questions. He asks, and I'll give this one to you first, Zach. How do the Bombers limit turnovers at this point? And Elliot adds, it seems like they're allergic to keeping the football. I believe it's 21 turnovers now in the last 4 games. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's 20, 21. Yeah, okay.
No, 21, you're right.
21. Yeah, so how should the Bombers look to limit that going forward, Schnitzy?
Yeah, this is a great question. And sometimes football is 4D chess, as Darren calls it. It's really complicated. Sometimes it's simple, and like you alluded to, Connor, right? It's not simplistic to say turnovers are the biggest stat in a football game. If you lose the turnover battle, it's going to be hard to win any football game. And the Bombers have a -10 turnover ratio at this point of the season. They're the worst in the CFL. They've coughed up the ball 25 times already. They have to limit the turnovers, and the biggest reason for the turnovers are the interceptions.
Yeah.
Right? They like 4 pick sixes in the last few games. Like Kolaris and Streveler throwing picks. Streveler, like I'll give him a pass on the first one because it was a tip ball. But that second interception, he drops back and he just launches it into the Argos secondary. There was 3 guys around the receiver. Yeah, it was a tip drill again, but still, that ball should never have been thrown in the middle of the field like that. And then we talked about the one to Stearns that was absolutely atrocious, both from a play calling and a decision making perspective. So Streveler like if he starts next week, Streveler absolutely, and he owned it at the end of the game to his credit, right? He did not I wouldn't have been able to tell had I not watched that game. I would have thought they lost. He was so crestfallen. But you know, he has to make better decisions with the football, and as does Kolaris. But I think Streveler even more so, because I expect him to be starting this week. I could be wrong. I don't know what you think, but they have to stop throwing picks. It's at this point, it's going to sink them.
Yeah, like whether it's Kolaris or Streveler, that is very much a need for this offense. It's not you can maybe start limiting turnovers. No, the interceptions and the ones in bad spots, like even Kolaris before he went out of that Toronto game, threw it to Stearns a little high in the red zone. Yes, it's tipped and picked, and maybe you can look at that as unlucky, but I look at it as a bad throw. So it's the timing of these interceptions and turnovers as well, where the Bombers are, losing the opportunity to get points in the red zone. So that is something that we're definitely going to be watching for going forward. This next question is from Jeremy, who asks, who should come in at field side corner to take Parker's spot if he's unable to go? He lists Vaval, Cam Allen, and Marquise Bridges. And his second question is, when will Peyton Logan be able to play? Zach, either of those 2 questions, go for it.
I'll start with the Logan one. What I heard from the practice report was that he was running around Logan. It's a thigh injury that's kept him out since training camp. Okay. So the impression I got is that he is not too far away, which will make things very interesting, because, you can't take out Trey Vaval now unless he absolutely botches next week and fumbles the ball a couple times. You have this guy that has set a Bombers franchise record in his rookie year and has all the makings of a great returner. So that being said, Logan is a great weapon to have on offense. And I think, he is a guy that he can run the ball, but when he catches the ball, particularly out of the backfield, he can make guys miss. He's got amazing quickness and speed and football instincts, in my opinion. Many of us thought he was the biggest offseason acquisition for the Bombers. So I hope he comes soon, because I think he would really open up the playbook for Jason Hogan, particularly if Streveler's playing. But to have Logan and then Oliveira in the backfield would be certainly interesting. Field side corner, I was thinking about that right after you asked the question, which is what people do when they're asked a question. I'm not sure why I said that, but the first thought that came to mind was I think Vaval, because he's come in. He came in for Bridges last week, right? He came in for Jamal Parker this week. He got roasted by Coxie, but everyone's getting roasted by Coxie. So plus he had no reps all week. So I would expect Vaval to be there. Now, if they want to keep Vaval fresh for punt and kick returns, one guy I might look at, you mentioned Cam Allen. He's played safety. So, and I don't think they'd move Cramdy over to corner. One guy that they have in the pipe that they just signed is this Dexter Lawson Jr., who played for Hamilton the last couple of years. He has started. He started 3 games at the beginning of the season at field side corner for Hamilton last year. So he's been there. He's had a pick. So he's a guy I might look for. But hopefully Jamal Parker comes back and we don't have to worry about it right now.
Yeah, and Jeremy there echoes your thoughts on Peyton Logan, saying, assuming he replaces Cooley, another run/short pass threat would be great right now for a Streveler run offense. And I agree with that assessment for sure. Yes. Yep. And you brought that up as well, Schnitzy. So thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions for Blue Crew Review. Again, stay glued to my Twitter at Hrabchak1. After every single Bomber game, I'll put out the call for questions. Drop your question down there below, and we'll try and get to as many as we can here on the WST Bombers Report. The final thing we have to do before we get out of here today, Schnitzy, is preview the upcoming game. And The Calgary Stampeders are back. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the Bombers coming off the home and home, getting smoked in both games, are going up against the Calgary Stampeders once again. And funny enough, a win would bring them, a game ahead of the Calgary Stampeders in the West. The Bombers would move to 5-3, Calgary to 5-4. Obviously, there are big question marks health-wise for both teams. I think starting with Calgary, Vernon Adams did not play last week in Ottawa. And they ended up losing that game. PJ Walker got the start. So it's going to be interesting to see if Vernon Adams is healthy enough to play. It's going to be interesting to see if Chris Streveler is the starter or if it's Zach Collaros, if he's healthy enough. Stanley Bryant. Dalton Schoen I wouldn't expect because we haven't seen him at practice yet. As well as Jamal Parker at field-side corner that we just broke down as well. So a lot of health questions on both sides of the ball. What are you expecting this week, or what do you say your way too early keys to the game are, Zach, looking ahead as the Bombers travel to Calgary to take on the Stamps?
This is a tough matchup for the Bombers right now, especially if Streveler's in, because the Stamps defense is arguably the best in the CFL, maybe right up there. Maybe Montreal is a little bit, but Montreal got absolutely annihilated by Saskatchewan. Their defense got torched. So this defense is really good. They allow a lot of yards, the second most in the CFL, but they allow the least points. So they're a bend but not break defense, and they are elite in the red zone. So if the Bombers are going to be able to get the offense going in this game, they are going to have to sustain drives. And they're going to have to score in the red zone, like you could say that about every week. But especially against this Stamps team, they're not going to give you a lot of time to even get into the red zone. So when you get there, you can't be throwing on first down a stop and go to your 5'8" receiver for a jump ball. So the Stamps are a little bit vulnerable versus the rush. They're about average. They do allow a lot of pass yards, but they don't allow TDs, right? So they are a bend but not break team. They are the best in opponent's second down conversion. TD rate per drive is the best in the CFL for their defense. They don't allow a lot of big plays. So the Bombers are going to have to be methodical on offense. They're going to have to be patient. They're going to have to pound the ball, and they're going to have to get creative. Like I said, in that one touchdown drive the Bombers had, I liked how they got Streveler out of the pocket. I liked the read option. I liked the sweeps. I liked the play action and short passes. He really had a connection with Stearns last game, I thought. I think Stearns is coming around, and I would say for the offense, that's the way they have to go. The Stamps, they have a very good rushing attack with Dedrick Mills. Now, you saw what happened. It was shut down against Ottawa, and it forced PJ Walker to pass, and he threw 3 picks. But I think even if PJ Walker starts, he's a guy that has some pedigree. He has a live arm. He can make all the throws. He just has to make better decisions. So I think, this is so cliche, Connor, but the Winnipeg defense is going to have to make them one-dimensional, just like Ottawa did. They're going to have to shut down Dedrick Mills. They're going to have to load the box. And then on second down, that pass rush is going to have to get after it so that the DBs have a better chance of knocking those balls down or picking them off. And the last thing I'll say is special teams. This is an interesting one, right? It surprises me to say this, but Rene Paredes is struggling.
Right. Yes.
The Calgary Stampeders have the worst field goal percentage in the CFL. They also give up the third most kick and punt return or kickoff return average yards. Right. So there is. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Paredes is struggling, but actually Lawther in Saskatchewan is even worse, which makes me giddy. But I think if Vaval can stack up another good game, like you said, he doesn't have to break one for a touchdown, but flip the field. I think Calgary can be vulnerable to that. But all of this to say, the Bombers can win this game. I mean, like you said, Vernon Adams might not be playing. Most of their starting receivers are out. Damien Alford's out. Phil Potts out. Clark Barnes is out. I don't know if those guys are going to be back. A couple of them have hamstring issues, which can be really, really touch and go. So, but if the Bombers are going to win, regardless who they're playing, they're going to have to be disciplined. They can't keep throwing picks and making poor decisions and in the red zone, especially. That they have to be methodical.
I agree. Yeah, I think discipline would be where I go with that as well. The turnovers, I mean, they lost the second Toronto game, or excuse me, the first Toronto loss, their third straight. The turnovers were 7-1 in Toronto's favor. Like the Bombers turned the ball over 7 times. So you can't have games like that, obviously. Ed Tate said this on WST with Hustler and Remus. You know, there's no recipe if you're turning the ball over 7 times to win a football game. There just isn't. But even if they're losing the turnover battle 3-2, 4-2 on the road against a defense that's this good, that's going to be a very tough hole to dig out of. And again, you're not going to get 2 kick return touchdowns or 2 return touchdowns, 1 kick, 1 punt from Trey Vaval every week. You're not going to get a defensive touchdown every week. So a more sustainable way to win would be to hold on to the ball, play Blue Bomber football, run the ball well, don't turn the ball over, let the defense do what they do, and hopefully see that continued improvement week over week from the defense that we saw from the first Toronto game to the second Toronto game. Zach, it was a great episode of WST Bombers Report, our first ever win to break down. You and I will be back next Monday breaking down hopefully another win. Saturday night, the Bombers are traveling to Calgary to take on the Stampeders. That game gets going at 6 o'clock. So Zach and I will be back Monday morning, as usual, with the next edition of WST Bombers Report. Like I said earlier, stay glued to my Twitter for the Blue Crew review. If you want to submit a question, let me know in the comments down below if you're buying or selling what I told Zach earlier. And make sure you hit the like button and notification bell as well so you don't miss the next edition of WST Bombers Report. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we will see you next Monday breaking down Bombers Stamps. Enjoy the game, everyone, and see you Monday.